Hello and welcome to the e-resources cleanup workshop. This will be part one, just sharing some of the tips and tricks that I have developed over the years, and a few of the tools that I have available in our Google Shared Drive and in our shared analytics area. This should set you up to do your own e-resources cleanup project and have a system that allows you to take some decent notes on any changes or corrections that were made, or delegate out the cleanup to multiple people and keep track of what's going on. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. Let me share the link in chat for this document. And you'll be able to see that I'm gonna reshare. Oh wait, I'm still sharing. This document so far is not super long. I'm hoping that with your examples of problems, we will be able to add additional ones and from your questions. So the first step that I have always used is to actually start with the the website's A to Z list, because I feel like that's the most transparent. It's what our users experience. So if there are problems with the descriptions or the linking, that's where they're going to be most immediately felt. But I've also included a couple of analytics reports to find a list of your collections. So starting with LibGuides, if you're not familiar with the platform, I'm going to go ahead and maybe you're not the person who's responsible for your website, but it's very easy to extract the list of your A to Z databases. So under content in LibGuides, go to A to Z database list, and you can export all records. Now, if you wanted to do this by a singular vendor, or if you wanted to only do, I don't know, but your video ones or something, you can, of course, just export a section at a time. But you export all records, and you'll get the option to pull a CSV. You don't want to, the template's going to be empty, but it can be a useful tool if you're going to do bulk updates. But so we do the CSV, and this is going to give us a very large spreadsheet, which I'm going to kind of clean up so it's readable. And I'm going to make this a table. All right, so now we have an ID number so that if we make updates and we load this back into A to Z guides, it matches up. We've got the name that is listed, the description, the URL, vendor types. So depending on what you're looking to correct, any or all of these might be useful. Today, I'm going to be focusing on checking URLs, proxies, etc. And depending on time, we can kind of get into some of my tips for doing other types of updates with these. So for this one, what I did was I went through and I basically hid the columns that I was like, I don't need these, because I'm just going to be looking at the URL and the vendor to make sure that they are correct. Excuse me. So now, oh, bother. I've got this. Oh, I don't really need the ID at the moment. And since the URLs can be quite long, and EBSCO is being so, or Excel's being so helpful, there we go. So this should be use proxy, but why is it not giving? It's like got the wrong content in this folder. Interesting. So now we have all of these links that we can check. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open the file that I've already started on for this one so that you can see what I've done. So here we have the one that I've already started on. And so I've kept the name, the URL, the vendor, whether or not it is using the libapps proxy so that you don't have things that are double proxied. And then this column I created myself, and it is a corresponding Alma collection. So I hadn't started on Gale yet, but if we take a look at EBSCO, you can see what I've done. So I check the link to make sure that it's going through all right, and I just put green so I know I've done it. And then I also make the note here of what the name of the collection is and the MMS ID. I continue on down the list. So this collection right here was one that the is no longer included in the subscription. The link was totally red, but the content or something similar was actually Consumer Health Complete, which we have already links for down here. So this red would indicate that, like this link needs to be deleted. Regional News Plus was no longer part of, or this was like the wrong link. So it's got database RPS. So I noted that the code for Regional Business News was actually BWH in that link. And then I basically continued on down. If there were ones that were proxied within the database link record instead of using the proxy, I made note of that. The abstracts, I noted that there were corresponding collections, but I did not activate them because they were like indexes or abstracts. I also indicated when there were duplicates. And this is a great way to then hand off the LibGuide or A to Z collection corrections to a different librarian if you're not the one that's responsible for that. I've also been through ProQuest, so I can show you that one. So all of these, I think there was an issue with the construction of the link. It was an old format, And so I actually updated many of these. So it wasn't so much that it didn't work, it did work, but it was taking quite a long time to redirect the user. And I also, many of them were not using the libguides proxy. They had the proxy prefix within the link already. So I fixed that. So in here, we can take a look. So for example, so here's those same ones, and I've taken the proxy prefixes out of the URLs and updated all of these to what they should be. To change your proxy URL in libguides, it's under admin and system settings. I won't share Big Ben's system settings in our recording, but it's a really good way to keep consistent proxy stuff across the board. Example story, Grays Harbor recently went from self-hosted to hosted EasyProxy, and because they already had consistent libguide uses of the proxy service instead of the proxy pasted into links, all they had to do was change that and it was done. So that is my Excel, and what I do is I kind of go 5 to 10 links at a time and open them up and make sure that they resolve correctly, and then can make a note of all of that. However, if you don't, oh yeah, and also updating links to HTTPS, because some browsers aren't going to like HTTP. So, and it's always good to kind of check those. Sometimes I play around a little bit if I'm like, that doesn't look like the right format. I'll kind of like check a link. So then I also found one and edited and then put together a different one in analytics, specifically to kind of look at your collections holistically. And they provide a little bit different view. So it's down to your personal preference of which one you might take a look at, or both. And it's in our consortial folder and the electronic collections and services folder. And the two are the e-collections activation and service status report and the electronic collections cleanup report. So this is the one I just created, and I did a couple different visualizations. And this is really a more holistic. So I did a list of collections with their public name, and there's a prompt for whether or not it has been activated for search in CDI. And then to the right, this tells you whether or not it's available for search. So there are some that have no value, which is annoying, but these are collections that have not been activated for search in CDI. And we can see on the right that some of them are available for search. Now, doesn't necessarily mean that you want to activate all of these for CDI, but if you're, paying for something like a comprehensive ebook collection, you probably do want that searchable in CDI. And then we can see here that we have many, many, many that are searchable. And they all say like, yes, because they would have to be in order to be active in search. I also did this graph just to show kind of whether or not you have consistency in making open access or subscription collections searchable or not searchable. And what we see here is that of the collections that are not searchable, there are 11 that are subscription content, and then there's only 2 that are open access. And I honestly would expect the opposite to be true for like not searchable, that you wouldn't have very many subscription collections that were unsearchable, but you might have quite a few open access ones because that metadata is not as good. Sometimes some of them are great. And then in our searchable list over here, we actually have 95 open access collections that are activated for search and CDI. Only 53 subscriptions, and then partial and hybrid 25. So that was kind of my own curiosity, and maybe a tool to have a discussion with your librarians or do some testing over the summer of how much do you want to see, how accurate are items, depending on which collections you have active for search and CDI. And then down at the bottom, this is really the one, it's just that it's the longest, so I put it at the bottom for visualization. This is where you'll want to compare this list against your vendor list from like the business office. Check it against invoices. Now, we know not everything is in Alma, but you want to make sure that your big obvious stuff is. It wouldn't be hard if you copied this to your own environment to add like an open access filter to keep the open access or free to search collections out of here and just do subscription ones. But this one also includes this public name override column. So this is a really good example of why I think these 2 columns are important to review if you've activated collections in Alma. If someone finds content from the American Institute of Physics, they're getting this whole crazy long string in the get it section under that item. So you probably want to do some kind of public name override here. If there are, specific kind of package details in the public name that set it apart in the community zone that your users don't need to see or might be confused by, it's nice to have an override. What you'll see here, Big Bend drops the vendor name from some of the collections that are activated, but not all of them. So if you discover that, you might want to check with the rest of the librarian staff on whether or not they want the vendor name on the collections. If they want them like in parentheses afterwards, etc. A lot of different options. But from a user point of view, this is not consistent. We also have the collection biomedical reference expanded is active, and yet the override is reference collection basic, which tells me that this is something that I need to look at as far as which collection do we actually subscribe to, and which, like, why is there a difference here? So this is a good one for just kind of doing those checks. You can see we have 2 different ebook packages, which, could be totally correct, but might be a problem. We've got just a few of the Gale collections because I activated these, so I focused on the ones where I felt like there was a lot of usage or there was content specific to the programs at Big Bend that we might want to pick up some of those extras that aren't in the general academic one file or general one file. And you can see they have quite a few open access collections. They call this Learning Express prep step on the A to Z list. So, like making sure that it says the same thing when students find that content. This was one that was already changed. Example of users don't need the details of this is archive part 1. So this is one that is a little bit more user focused, this report, in, like, are they experiencing consistent discoverability to your subscription and open access collections that have been activated. Now the other one is a little more detailed and could be it's a more like actual fixes kind of report. So in this one, it will actually provide at the bottom the total number of collections that you have in repository, down at the bottom, as well as portfolios and local portfolios, so ones that are not linked to the community zone. This also tells you whether or not the collection has been proxy enabled at the service level, or if it is proxy enabled at the portfolio level, or not at all. But you might just start with the service level. Again, it's got that public name override, but it shows all of the details of the CDI linking. So whether it's link in record or link resolver, whether it's only full text activation, and then what full text rights there are. So again, there could be more details in this, but I kind of edited it to make it manageable. What you can see here is that it is service is proxy enabled and it's set to default. Now, if you have multiple proxy services that you're using, it's entirely likely that you'd see different options along here, but there's really no reason for Big Bend to not have everything at default, because if they do change their proxy server in service in any way, these collections here that say Easy Proxy, while it currently matches the default because Easy Proxy is the default, if we add a new proxy service and make it default, these will still stay at the Easy Proxy one. So that's a good one to check. Obviously, you can add filters to this if you'd like to just check, certain aspects of the collection list. Oh, look, I see I did all of that wrong. These were ones I activated and I did it incorrectly. But this one could even double as a how many collections do you have active for your IPEDS and ACRL reporting, because those now include open access collections. You don't have to they don't split out subscribed versus open access. So Big Bend now has 230. But there are like 19,000 portfolios that are not linked to the community zone. So we've got, 1,300 in ProQuest Business. So that's probably something I need to investigate. And then we have just handfuls in Gale. Again, we'll have to investigate. And this makes sense because these are specific titles that have been activated, maybe based on purchases, but I'll still look into it because that's a lot. So those are the two analytic reports that you can also export. One of the things to note when exporting reports is there may be filters acting in the background, like on the criteria page. And if you export as data, you will get everything and not have any of the filters. Whereas if you get formatted, you will get what you see on this page. So you will get the columns in this order, you will get the filters as they are acting, any sorting that's being done, because I sorted this based on interface name, and you can still export to Excel with this, like presentation. So yeah, that's how I start, is by pulling that entire list, and then I keep the list up and I keep the A to Z databases list up and I put them next to each other, basically. Where is it? Nope. There we go. And as I work through them, I'm comparing and correcting and making it more consistent. And I'm keeping notes in this document so that anyone else making reviews later on has those notes. Now, if you're wanting to do updates of the databases in bulk, which I have not done with this because I've been working on it piecemeal, you would want to keep all of the columns the same, and you wouldn't want to put notes into your own titled column. You'd want to, like have an internal note column of like changed this date, or, the Alma collection can go in the internal note. But you can then take this file and import it to update all of your A to Z lists after you're done. So that's how I start. As I say in the documentation, I go vendor by vendor because then I can look at what we are subscribed to in that vendor list and add any that are missing. And it just kind of keeps my brain like thinking about their URL construction. I'll oftentimes open up the various creating static URL help pages that exist. So like the direct URL, that's what it is. And this is available whether you are logged in as an admin or not. And if you know that you can usually pull your customer ID from just going and looking at it. And this is where sometimes I play if like something's not working, like, oh, what are we, how are we generating that URL? Why is it not working? And you can see they have several different, so here's the Learning Express library. So I was able to create, double check all of those. But most everything is going to be in the EBSCO research databases. And then This is also where you can create custom URLs. So if you want to create something that searches, like a bunch of periodicals all at once, you can, so like agricultural, then it will actually put all of those database codes together to create a custom search. So I've included my processes, a bit of screenshot. I might add some more screenshots of the analytics reports. And then I've started listing issues that have come up, but I'd like to add any tips or issues you guys have. One of the things that I'd like to do is kind of have a general cleanup. So things like updating to HTTPS, and then more specific, issues that maybe you've struggled with or you're wondering how to handle.
Hey, Carly, I
Mm-hmm.
would just offer a caveat about that direct URL builder. I just tested it. We switched to the new UI for EBSCO
Mm-hmm.
and the base URL changes.
Oh, I wonder if they have
I just
it.
tried it for us and I'm seeing,
Do they not have it set up yet in here?
yeah, I don't think that they do from what I'm seeing.
All right. Good to know. I'll ask George if they have a plan for getting the new UI into the URL builder.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes what I'll do too is if I go to a listing like this and Mhm. um what I'll do is like back out of it to basic and then go back to advanced, and then I can see okay, here it is. And then that link can where is it? Oh, I probably yeah. Um, that link is what I pasted here, and then it's uses the proxy, so I know I've got the right thing. And Gale has a create permalink for their collections. So if we go to Gale and you're like, oh, I want you can do get link and um and then you can create a permalink for pretty much anything in Gale by using the get link. This does include the proxy here at the beginning. So when I put it into LibGuides or a website, I take that out so that it's not getting double proxied. But yeah, so that's how I start with cleanup. And because I don't do billing for Big Bend. And I was working closely with our acquisitions person at Whitworth, but I didn't want to like drag her down with like, hey, get me all this information if I didn't need it. What I did was, instead of asking for, hey, give me the invoices for all of our electronic resources so I can cross-check, because it almost never makes sense anyway, was, for example, like if you go to ProQuest or EBSCO, you can see what other databases are subscribed to. And I use this because this is going to be the actual user name that they see. So this should be pretty darn close to whatever you're going to put in as the public name on your LibGuide, and preferably also whatever the electronic collection is called. If it's not this, should probably be pretty darn close to this, because this is what's a user sees when they log in at the top of the screen. So you can do this with ProQuest and EBSCO, I think, as well. Again, I do this so piecemeal that my brain sometimes gets a little mushy about it. So this will work because I'm already proxied in. Nope, just kidding. So EBSCO, again, I used this to choose databases and discovered quite a few that that Big Bend wasn't using. However, EBSCO in particular does have a couple of different platforms now, between the new UI and some of their different products. So it's important to check. There were some EBSCO products that were not part of the research databases collection that I had to go and investigate a little bit further. So that's kind of the front user side of things. And feel free to ask questions for whenever you have them. In the Alma side of things.
Hey, Carly.
Mhm.
So if I'm thinking through what you were just sharing, the first thing is that you double check your A to Z list is up to date, and then check to see that the activation is correct, both with the number of portfolios and whether or not it's available in CDI. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, whether or not you activate something in CDI might be a discussion for the larger group. I am a put it all out there, make everything the most discoverable as possible. But I also made sure that even though Big Bend has several Gale collections in the A to Z list, I did not activate every single one of those in Alma, because we know that it's mostly overlap with the main ones. One of the issues that I ran into that was particularly frustrating is one that I'd like to share, and perhaps you guys even have some better tips for how to deal with it. I'm gonna get out of this so I don't break Ex Libris's brain. Was there were institution zone collections that that had been activated without the setting of automatically activate new portfolios. And so over the last 3 years, they had no longer become accurate. So I had to do a couple of things to learn how to fix this. And the first one is very easy, but it only works if you're not using acquisitions and the electronic collection is not attached to a PO line. And there might be other caveats to this, but if you are looking at an electronic collection in your in the institution zone, and we'll just do and it's, you know, a something. Okay, this is what I was looking for. So Academic Search Premier, and this is actually the one that I found it with. When I looked over here at the portfolio list for the institution zone, it only was showing 600 portfolios. And I was like, oh, that's not right. So when I start looking at an electronic collection, there are basically like 3 levels. There's collection, there's service, and there's portfolios. So I start with collection, which is the one that's visible. And this gives me the public name override. It also allows you to add a description. And if you want to add some kind of internal description to say, like, you know, this includes all these other collections, no need to activate them, whatever. It also tells you that you know, it's full text service and whether or not it's attached to a PO line. Here we have the level URL, whether or not the collection is proxy enabled and which proxy is selected. So I always try and change it to default if there's only one anyway. And here's one of the ways you can get to portfolios. Then there's no notes on here. In the history, you can see, you know, like all the things that I did. And you can see whether or not it has been activated for CDI. If this stuff is grayed out, you may not have the right role because managing CDI activation is an additional like sub role because CDI is newer to Alma Electronic Collection Management. So this one is active. What you might find interesting is the selection of we subscribe to only some titles in this collection. That is something that after a couple of years of like first hearing about the move from PCI to CDI and then talking to librarians at various institutions and talking to Ex Libris support, if you select yes, it basically helps make what gets pulled in from other sources more limited. So if you say we subscribe to only some titles in this collection, no, Alma looks at this and says, okay, well, here's metadata information from this collection that looks 90% like this other collection or this other metadata or this other portfolio. And it pulls in that metadata too to like enrich the record. By saying we subscribe to only some titles, yes, Alma looks at this and says, okay, I am not going to try and look for additional metadata that might match because it's been indicated that, you know, not everything should be activated. However, we're also activating every single portfolio, and we are selecting to automatically activate any new portfolios. So you're still getting everything you subscribe to. Mind you, this is my understanding of the difference between these two radio buttons, and I've never really gotten like a fully transparent technical answer on why to choose these two. This is just my experience. Do not show as full text available in CDI, even if active in Alma. That's one that I still don't fully understand. So if anyone has a clue, however, I tend to check it if it's like a local collection. Isaac?
Um, so they gave us like those choices because initially, and I don't know if it's improved a whole lot since then, but initially there were a lot of issues of like wild duplication of ebook records. So they gave us this option to either show the CDI records for ebooks or
Or
the
just
Alma
the
records for ebooks.
got it. So
So
if you're
that setting is primarily relevant for collections that
have
um are
ebooks,
are ebooks. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and now Big Bend has activated the exclude CDI ebooks in their main search profile, so they don't get a lot of duplication anymore. Um, but okay, so that's good to know because I was like, um, but if you're still getting a lot of duplication, it sounds like it could be worthwhile to kind of test that checkbox.
Yeah, that this other setting, the exclude CDI ebooks, is like a newer setting that became available later.
Well, and I don't think it entirely works anyway. Um,
Yeah, I don't even know.
um, good times.
But
Uh,
that's primarily like the use case for doing that. And I want to say that at Shoreline we have chosen to set like all of our, I forget exactly how we've configured our ebook collections, but I think we have them set one way or the other. And I think it is um I think we are showing the Alma records and not the
not
CDI.
CDI records. And
Mhm, I
that
think so.
is something that you can add to the analytic reports that I created as well.
Mhm.
So if you want to go through and check your ebook collections to see if you've used the do not show full text, or the we only subscribe, you can add those columns pretty easily. And you might find issues. Um, Thank you. So that is the edit collection. Now, I'm going to cancel and go to edit service, which is under 3 dots. And so this is where I found like that they had put in the active from and until dates as the subscription dates for like the year contract. So they had several collections that they had subscribed to back in 2020 with an active until date of 2021. So then they were no longer showing up. So service activation, it is available. This is one way though that if you're trying to get a, you know, compare collections or something and you don't want to make it available in Alma yet, but you want to see what's going on, you'd want to make it not available. We've set this to activate new portfolios associated with the service automatically because this is an aggregator package that Big Ben subscribes to. The display unavailable message can be used in cases of outages or other issues. The service description, service type of full text is what shows up in that analytics report. So if it, hybrid or open access or full text. And then here's another spot where if you wanted to put internal description stuff in, you could. This linking shows the parser parameters, and unless you are experiencing issues with a specific vendor and get information that it needs to be different for you, probably don't want to mess with that. One of the things that I always do, just because it's weird, is I make sure that the service level and the collection level are set to proxy enabled for default. That I don't know, it shouldn't matter because they're inherited down the line. But there's always some weird thing. You also, in your linking parser parameters, can put your customer ID in here. One thing to note, this is especially relevant with EBSCO, is ProQuest, their ebook central package versus their research databases package. You probably, or you should, have two different customer IDs. So don't accidentally put the wrong one in, or it will populate that and it won't work. Then we have the portfolios tab, which is yet another place to access the portfolios. And you'll see up here the various selections. So move set of portfolios. Say you want to do some kind of like you've decided to combine perpetual ebooks with ebook subscriptions or something, and you're gonna move portfolios from one collection to another, you can do that. You can activate and deactivate based on specifics. So if there's something that's not working, the portfolio loader is one of the solutions that I found for mismatch collections, and you can see there's even within portfolio loader, there are different options. So what I had to do, and we only have a couple minutes here, so if anyone has a similar issue and wants to start with this next week, we certainly can. So we were missing quite a few portfolios in Academic Search Premier, and I was able to just delete them all and then reactivate them, all of them, from the community zone. But then in an ebook collection, I was like, well, we can't just do that because we only need some of them. So using the portfolio loader is not through here, but it's a job, and it's a little bit detailed, and you'll need to download the template. So we can definitely start with that next week. Another note in the chat from Isaac: if you're using the suggested resource feature in Primo and databases from Alma, you'll want to turn on the proxying at the collection level. Yeah, super smart, because most of the time you're not going to, your service level is good enough because you're linking at the article level, and the service in the portfolio inherits from the service, so it should proxy through. But if you're doing suggested resources, or you've added your databases to the catalog to make them findable, you'll want that collection level proxied. So we should definitely do the portfolio loading demonstrations next week. I will set it up so that we can do it in the sandbox and I don't mess up anyone's live environment because it's a little goofy and I want to make sure I have examples of the brokenness that we can fix. So, and in the meantime, if there are other issues that you frequently have, please email me. I do have the comments from your registration. So I'll also be looking at those and adding to this document, but I wanted to make sure that in this first session, we were kind of all starting from a place of, like, what list am I going to use to go through this? How am I going to portion it out? Be it by vendor or by subscription resources, or I just want to audit my open access ones. And gives you a place to start, and maybe you work through a few and you find some problems that we can share next week. So with that, I will stop sharing and stop recording.